Welcome to the holidays. If this is not a joyful and merry time of the year for you, or if it is, but you have loved ones who struggle to participate in seasonal jolliness, you're probably in the right place. Hi, I'm Cypris. Welcome to the wild. Let's have a cup of tea and talk about holiday funk. Lately, I've been struggling to get content out, and there are a variety of reasons for that, but what I'm noticing at the moment is how, with the extreme Christmas enthusiasts bubbling with seasonal joy all over social media, I just feel like shutting down. It's not that I'm at a George Bailey level of susceptibility to holiday funk. It's just that I feel so alien to what seems to be happening for so many people. And this time of year is really hard for a lot of people. But the Norman Rockwell-esque jolly winterscape that's getting plastered everywhere feels like the whole world's gone mad with some form of disassociation from reality. Which is not to knock it if you love it. Not what I'm saying. If you want to binge watch Elf on repeat until your eyes bleed, you go right ahead. But for the rest of us, the ones not lulled by this explosion of mandatory joy and merriment, I think it would be useful to talk about the sitch for a little bit. Because we don't tend to talk about it. Or I've never really seen a lot of open discussion about this weird warp in reality at this time of the year. We only seem to hear about looking out for those who aren't good at participating in it. Is that really the problem? Are we just broken because we're largely immune to the Jingle Bell Kool-Aid? From my perspective, and admittedly my perspective is not a universal one, so grain of salt and all that. But what I see is that just when all the collective misery of this life condenses in a season of cold and death and hibernation, a great big chunk of the world wants to act like now everything is rosy and fine and a candy cane lined wonderland of pretty snowflakes and Hallmark rom-coms. And for me, I think it's that dissonance that is so jarring and that makes me want to retreat further into my hibernation. And I want to be clear that I'm not knocking the melancholy of a winter season either. I think there's something healing and restorative that can happen when we face all that bleakness. Except the world is not particularly accessible for a while, and huddle up with firewood and hot tea and things to read and projects to work on and shadow work to slog through. Now, admittedly, living alone, I'm not stuck in co-hibernation with family or a partner I can't stand, as so many people realized for themselves during lockdown. But that's your mess to deal with, and that sucks, and I'm sorry. Been there. That's why I live alone now. But back to decking the halls, I am wondering if it's really what we're told. That people get so overwhelmed by their personal situations and griefs during the holiday season because they can't fit the mold. Maybe that's not the whole story. Maybe part of the problem is that for those of us who are facing what's in front of us, for those of us who feel a natural pull to get quiet and hole up and stay in our dens to wait out the deep freeze, this explosion of snowman reindeer magic land feels horrifyingly fake. It's a palliative. Everything is plastic. Again, personal opinion here, I wonder whether most of this manic holiday cheer is really just very unhappy people who come face to face with the brink of that long, cold death of winter and they just pull a hard nope on reality. What if all these people who get so deep into Christmas lights and sappy movies are the ones who are truly in crisis? Now, again, If that's what gets you through a rough time, you go for it. I am not knocking your coping mechanisms. We all need them from time to time. But what I think is so harmful is that this is the shared coping mechanism of so many that it gets sold as reality, in that everyone is supposed to get on board. And not all of us can. In my personal situation, I just don't do well ignoring reality. I don't find escapism helpful in that way. Sure, I love a great fantasy story here and there, but I prefer to keep the line between reality and fantasy clear. So to me, when I start seeing all these holiday fanatics gushing over tinsel and frozen precipitation, it seems like the whole world has gone mad. Like, even madder than it normally is. And that makes me feel so alienated. Like, it's a zombie apocalypse. I can't participate in your shared seasonal delusion that Santa Claus has any real influence over the ethics of this realm. But it's taken me decades to be able to articulate this, because that's just not the narrative. How many times have you heard it? That Christmas is a magical time, that the world is just a better place during this season, that people are nicer to each other. Well, yeah, some of them are, because they've plugged themselves into this little fantasy. But it doesn't last all year because it's not sustainable for people. I probably sound like Holden Caulfield right now. All these phonies. They're so phony. Phonies. Again, I want to clarify, I'm not vilifying Christmas. Heck, there's a lot of fun to be had with all of it. I could eat a mountain of candy canes, and despite my hilariously abysmal experience with the Hocking Valley Scenic Railway in Nelsonville, Ohio, I do actually enjoy a classic winter-themed train ride. So I'm not arguing that there is no joy in holiday and seasonal traditions. I'm saying that, at least for me, the struggle comes when the cheer is mandated as reality. Because it's not. And it really irritates the shit out of me. Because we have all these people bending over backwards to participate in a shared fantasy. But when it comes January, keep the same energy. You want a better world? A kinder world? A world that feels magical? Live it all year. Let's make our real world more bearable, yes? Let's take all that energy that we're pumping into tacky lawn ornaments and just try to bring a bit of joy and goodwill to the real world all year round. And yet, it's not just that. This is the dark half of the year. There is a very natural and primal pull to curl up and keep warm, to slow down, to get contemplative. Heck, the rebirth of the sun happens before winter is even half over, and the mood lightens. So we really only have from Halloween to solstice to really focus in on that deep, dark, quiet space before the light starts coming back and we start planning what bulbs to plant in the spring. Let us have that time to meditate, to recalibrate, to rest, to beg off some of those extra responsibilities. I can't help but wonder how different the seasonal mood swing would be if we could normalize the winter soul descent and give it space, and respect it as a valuable part of the human experience. This doesn't mean everyone has to participate, but all you frostbitten hibernation deniers could stand to give the rest of us a little room, a little respect, for we are called to observe the seasonal changes in a different way. Fun fact, originally the Yule season was much later in the winter, always after the winter solstice. It ran on a lunar schedule, so dates varied, generally starting from late January to early February. The holiday was eventually moved up to the solstice because that's when early medieval folks were celebrating. But even with Yule now anchored to the solstice, that means celebrating started at that point and continued on past New Year's Day. And I just like that better. I mean, having the celebration after the solstice rather than leading up to it. It feels more natural to me, more in line with the rhythms of the Earth's seasons. You still get to have the anticipation of the holiday season, but you also get that vital period of introspection. And all that crazy, manic, sugar saturation of celebrants wouldn't have to start until the light had actually begun its return. Doesn't that make so much more sense? Am I just crazy? I mean, it's possible. But I genuinely think that the reason everyone seems to go so nuts for Christmas so early is because that little tug, that pull toward hibernation and introspection, I think it terrifies the shit out of a lot of folks. And they prefer to skip over it and head right into the merriment. Okay, so unpopular opinion, but the butterfly doesn't exist without first enduring the cocoon. So from now on, I choose to see all these holiday fantasy fanatics as caterpillars taping mylar wings onto themselves. Okay, reality check. Am I being too rigid in how I'm looking at this? Maybe. I really don't wish to kill anyone's joy, but if we look at the statistics of how many folks can't handle the dissonance that happens at this time of the year, it's a real issue. And I'd like us to stop seeing those who struggle with the holidays as the problem. Maybe the real problem is our approach culturally to the holidays. Maybe we need a more live and let live situation. Maybe we need to hold space for the seasonal descent that so many living creatures experience at this time. Humans are not exempt from Gaia's sleep, nor should we try to force ourselves to be perky while the cold, drowsy blanket of winter covers the land. It's not a bad thing. It's an intrinsic part of the cycle of the year. Humans keep themselves so busy, like frantic ants. It's good to have a few weeks to shift the focus inward. And yet, at this exact time, the human world explodes with mandatory extroversion and performances of exuberant, largely faked cheer. It's no wonder people go mad. It's no wonder this is the last straw for some of those who struggle to feel connected with humanity. And so, if we're getting anything out of this ramble, I'd like us to think a little bit more about the natural, seasonal life cycle and how that tugs on us. Maybe feeling dissonance with plastic flashing reindeer and rigidly idealized family interactions is not a sign of a mental health crisis. Maybe the crisis is that our world doesn't validate that deep longing to get real. Maybe the holidays would be easier to get through if we honored the natural ebb and flow. One of my favorite YouTubers, Jone, has a favored mantra. Be like the bison.
They face the hardest parts so that they can come out on the other side of it much faster.
You may be familiar with her. She's had some viral videos. Anyway, what I'd like to bring to this discussion is a similar mantra for going with the natural seasons. Be like the bear. I don't mean just go and maul people because they're obnoxious. No, really, don't do that. I mean, go full on when the salmon run and the getting is good. I mean hunker down when it's cold and dark. I mean let yourself ebb and flow with the changing weather and sun and whatever reality you are facing. Who knows? It might even lift some of that holiday funk. And if being around family makes you feel shitty, maybe avoid family. Or just accept that they're not going to validate you. Or sometimes not even respect you. Because ultimately, most humans are navel-gazing. It's just one of those pesky parts of the human condition. Well, on that cheery note, thanks for listening. I needed to get all of that off of my chest. And I'd love to know what you think. I'd also love to hear what hacks you've found for navigating this sometimes treacherous season. As always, I'd love to see you like, subscribe, comment, and click the bell for notifications because it tells YouTube, please, not to bury my content at the bottom of the algorithm. Again, thanks for being here with me through the holidays. We can get through this together. And until the next video, keep your holidays or your hibernation wild. Holiday funk. And there are a lot of cats jumping on things. What are you guys doing? You're always so quiet. And all of a sudden, I start filming and it's boom, 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 jump off of the top counters. Don't hit that. And I want to be... Despite my hilariously, and yet it's that little... Hell. And I'd like us, it might even leave phonies. Oh, these phonies!